Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
John, can you say the word resilient? Can you say that word?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's an adjective, right, Brad? A 3-syllable adjective?
Resilient, okay? That is what we are today. And by the way...
That's what you are today, Brad. You don't have to share the credit there. That's what you are today.
We had a little problem here at Radio Ranch yesterday, and hopefully it's all fixed. But I just realized I saw that text fly by, and the streaming is still not working. So I'm working on that in between me doing other things. But I do have to tell you, and I have some good news about before we get into the important top three. I have some good news that I finally got it over here. I'm going to see if you can hear this. Tell me if you can hear this.
Just want to say, can we all get along? Can we get along?
Did you hear that? Okay.
I can hear that, Brad, and I hear a PCP-addled voice finally coming to sobriety, urging us to all unite.
Okay. I just want to make sure you can hear that because I'm going to play the audio. I just use that as that's the Rodney King bit, which I'm going to start using.
And let's not forget, Brad, speaking of resilience, you have today overcome the constant needling and harassment and pressure from your morning co-host. And there are billboards on 170 today.
No, not on 170, on I-70, Interstate
I'm sorry,
70 in
on
St. Charles.
I-70
yes,
today.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm not a very good reader. I-70, 170, whatever it is.
Well, it's I-170. Technically, it's I-170 and I-70. But
there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Because you wanted to model yourself after Crystal Quaid and put a billboard up, but yours are spelled correctly.
Yeah, but I spelled it says Bard and John. Bard and B-A-R.
I haven't seen it, so we don't know. I haven't seen the creative, so I don't know.
You don't believe me, but I already looked at the online thing, and we've already been up 28 times. So far this morning. Okay. Have you heard the hearings going on yesterday with the prospective cabinet members for the new Trump incoming White House? Have you heard this?
Yeah, I've seen some clips, on social media.
Did you hear the Pam Bondi and Adam Schiff back and forth yesterday?
No, I heard her say something about how people, here's the name of her childhood friends, and people can go interview them.
Okay. You ready for this? Let me play this for you.
I am ready, yeah.
Okay, take a listen to this.
The president has said that my head looks like a watermelon. Will you commit to making him stop?
Senator, I feel for you. I really do. But I can't commit to making President Trump stop calling you watermelon head because, to be honest, your head does look like a watermelon. I mean, damn. And how do you even hold that thing straight with that tiny little pencil neck?
Can you believe that, John? Can you believe this?
If that audio was any hotter, I'd have to call Charlie Combest and he'd have to come and put out the fire, Brad.
Was it too loud for you?
Oh, no. I was just saying it was. I'm making a fire reference. No, that was funny. It's that woman's voice sounds a lot like the AI Dua Lipa singers.
Okay, I had to get that in because I heard that last night. I thought to myself, it's actually a video, and I'm amazed at how good these guys have gotten to the point where if you see the video, they've actually taken the video and they put that AI audio over the top of the video, and it actually syncs up pretty well. I mean, if you look at it,
there's one. Sorry to interrupt, but there's a video of Trump and Obama at Carter's funeral. I don't know if you've seen that one, but they're having a funny exchange there. Right. And they pan to Hillary Clinton looking crabby.
Right.
It could be pretty funny.
Right. Okay, John, here's what we're going to do. We're going to bring in this guy right here.
I'm Casey Kasem.
And what's he going to do?
We're on our way to the number one.
But here's what I'm going to do. I have to run down the hall to see if I can get the streaming computer up. So can I just start you? Is number one going to take or number three going to take at least a couple minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go through that.
Okay, so I'm going to hit number 3, and then you're going to go, and I'm going to run down the hall, see if I can get the streaming computer fixed. Okay,
fantastic.
You ready?
That sounds great.
Okay, here we go.
In third place,
State Representative Chad Perkins from Bowling Green was the special guest on Scott Fawn's This Week in Missouri Politics yesterday. With Governor Kehoe's agenda, crime has been a centerpiece, and Chad Perkins is a cop. He may be a former cop. I'm not sure if he's still a cop today, but for a while he was a member of law enforcement. And Scott had a conversation, a robust conversation with Chad Perkins about Governor Kehoe placing so much emphasis on crime. And one of the things that Scott brought up on the midweek update yesterday is a topic that he's brought up on his regular shows and his midweek updates before, which is perhaps Governor Kehoe focusing on crime and quote unquote fixing the crime problem in St. Louis City is too ambitious. Maybe it's just too much. And Scott points out that every governor has a honeymoon period. You have a period of time in which you can really leverage your political capital for one or two big things. And that the idea that Kehoe is going to use his political capital to solve crime, well, it might be, noble. It might be helpful to the people in St. Louis City, but is it really smart? Are you just setting yourself up for failure? Now, Brad, you and I can have this conversation because I don't think we've had this conversation much before. We talk a lot about St. Louis City crime, but here's an unpopular opinion. What if the state legislature could pass a whole lot of bills and a whole lot of measures that actually do nothing? What if the problem in St. Louis City of crime isn't about some kind of concealed carry law or some sort of gun-free zone or some sort of economic development in North City? What if the problem in St. Louis City is just the people? And what if the answer is to flee as far from the city as possible? People don't talk about that very much, Brad, because it makes people uncomfortable. It makes people think that you're talking about race and class. I don't know. The other curious thing that I think Chad brought up, I had never thought of this analogy before. There's been a long time debate about who should control the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, whether it should be controlled by the state of Missouri or local control. Now, folks in St. Louis have had control for around about 15 years. I think it was around 2009, maybe 2010, that they got control of St. Louis City Police. Chad Perkins used an analogy I had never heard before, which is if the state of Missouri sees that a school district anywhere in the state of Missouri is failing in its mission to serve Missourians, the state comes in and takes control of the school district. That's what the state did, Brandon, and some of our favorite districts where you and I are from, Riverview Gardens, Normandy, other districts that you and I are quite familiar with. The state has come in and said, whoa. You guys aren't doing the job that you're assigned to do. We're going to come in and take control. Now, that analogy from Chad Perkins isn't perfect because usually it's a temporary state intervention in the period of school districts for, a few years that the state will intervene and take control and then relinquish control back to the locals. But Chad's point, I think, is if a government entity, if a local entity isn't performing its duty, it's the state's responsibility to step in and fix the issue. So Chad and Scott talked about a number of other issues, including Bayer's legislation to protect glyphosate. That's the common herbicide that's used on top of, above, or over-the-top weed control in Missouri farms. Talked about some of that legislation, what it means for Missouri farmers. They also talked about the controversy about House of Representatives rules, amount of time you can debate something the third time that the bill has been read, some of the minor minutia back and forth. They started off with that, and then they got into the heavier stuff. So, as always, I have a link up with the timestamps. And, Brad, I would also point people right underneath the Chad Perkins story. If you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see a link where you can sign up for the Missouri Times Whispering Gallery. And that is a weekday newsletter from Monday through Friday. Jake Crozen, who's new at the Missouri Times, puts together a daily newsletter, a weekday newsletter, where you can read not only the biggest stories of the day as reported by the Missouri Times, but you also get a list of major political contributions that have been reported that day, I guess I should say the previous day, to the Missouri Ethics Commission. You can also see things like lobbyist changes, who's lobbying for what. And it's a nice compendium, a nice amalgamation, if you will, of news stories that you need. Jake puts that together every morning on behalf of the team, Helton Turner, Scott Fawn.
Good. Okay, we got the streaming back up, so everything should be going well. Moving on with number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
Brad, a follow-up to a controversial piece that we've talked about. It seems like we talk about this probably every month or two, but it's the control of cannabis contracts in the state of Missouri. So where we are today, the Division of Cannabis Regulation came out and said, we're going to do something about these predatory contracts, about these big cannabis companies coming in, finding someone to front their group, a disabled minority veteran, somebody who can get preferential treatment, and then just yanking the contract out from under those folks after a short period of time for a little bit of money. Just to make sure we get this right, the group is called the Missouri Division of Cannabis Regulation, and they put their rules forth, and they're taking public comment on those rules. Now, Brad, as you and I have discussed, a lot of folks that make money in cannabis aren't too happy with this more stringent set of rules. And in fact, this piece, I should highlight, is from the Missouri Independent. Rebecca Rivas put this piece together, and she gets comments from the cannabis industry trade group called MoCan Trade and their spokespeople. Now, Brad, my favorite anecdote from this, we referenced this once a few months ago, and I think it's bringing up again. There is a gentleman, an African-American gentleman, that says that he didn't understand that when he signed up for a micro business license, that the contract that he signed with a Michigan group called Canazoned, this gentleman gave him 100% ownership interest, Brad, but he got no revenue or profits. And he would be required to sell his share of the business to the group for $1. So if this sounds like something ridiculously predatory, I don't know how these companies can even justify doing this, but you'll see in the next month as this set of rules eventually, Brad, goes to the Missouri Secretary of State. As you know, the Secretary of State is in charge of business registrations. You'll see a lot more debate about this. A lot of folks that are on that cannabis trade industry board make their money in cannabis. They're attorneys, they're business people. So they've had a lot to say about these proposed regulations.
The whole problem could be averted if we would have just adopted Brad Bradshaw's amendment. That's the whole problem. Brad Bradshaw, the doctor and the attorney, where's he from? Springfield or something like that?
I believe he's a Springfield guy, yeah.
If we had a problem, he'd solve it, just like ice, vanilla ice, because he would say, Brad would just come on and say, dude, this is ridiculous. Stop doing that. And it would be taken care of. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's the joy of having a dictator or a czar, Brad.
Exactly.
It's like when we were here under the oppressive reign of Egbert. Remember that? I went to bjshow.co and removed some references to Egbert, since that's no longer a thing. So remember when we were under the oppressive regime of Egbert?
He's still here.
Oh, do you have him in the helium tank?
I don't. Okay.
I figured you had him chained. You know what you have to keep away from Egbert, Brad, is matches. Did I ever tell you the story? Well, I'll tell you off the air. He plays with matches a lot.
Okay, I'm not going to touch that one. Okay, it's now on to the most important one of the morning.
The number one.
The top story today, Brad, is one that is sure to disappoint people who are intrigued by political scandal, salacious stories, resignations, big high-profile fights. And that is that brand spanking new Congressman Wesley Bell has settled a discrimination lawsuit, Brad. I should say St. Louis County has settled a discrimination lawsuit. This story is brought to us by Joe Holloman of the Post-Dispatch, and it's my top link up today. Brad, you'll recall there's a woman named Susan Peterson. She was a longtime St. Louis County prosecutor, and she was alleging that she was discriminated against in Wesley Bell's office. And she, as it turns out, settled this lawsuit that she had for discrimination. And if this sounds like a boring old race and age discrimination case, you might recall, Brad, from when we talked about it a few months ago, the salacious element of this is that Ms. Peterson's attorney wanted to be able to ask Wesley Bell questions about the environment in his office. For example, if he had had physically intimate relationships with his subordinates in the office. Now, his attorney said that those questions were important because they would show a pattern of discrimination and show as I understand it, Brad, that certain women were treated differently than other women. So there have been some folks that have been on top of the story. Former State Senator Maria Chappelle-Nadal has been tweeting about this a lot, has been posting about this a lot. She happens to know a lot about the case and a lot about some of the people who were apparently involved in these discussions. Now, Brad, the confusing thing about this, and you might know this better than I do, I wasn't able to get this from Joe Holloman's piece today, but unless I'm reading this incorrectly, whatever settlement was given to this woman, Susan Peterson, is coming from taxpayer money. So unless I'm hearing this wrong, this administration, Sam Page's administration, is using taxpayer money to settle what could have been an embarrassing lawsuit against a Democrat congressman here in St. Louis. So I don't know if it's entirely possible, by the way, Brad, that I'm reading this wrong. Again, what I know about St. Louis County government could fit in a thimble. I don't know the way county government works, but wouldn't we as taxpayers be paying this woman out so that Wesley Bell doesn't have to go to trial for this? Am I reading this right?
Well, John, what do you expect? Do you expect those people to put it out of their own pocket? Come on, John.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, doesn't it seem, I don't know, it just seems the idea that you can avoid, I don't know. I don't know a polite way to say this, but doesn't this just seem like, okay, if I'm St. Louis County government, and let's say I really like Wesley Bell, by the way, Hazelwood East graduate, I should point out. Let's say that I really like Wesley Bell. Why wouldn't I just posture with this Peterson woman's attorneys for a while? And then as we get closer to, by the way, this was going to go to trial on January 17th, or I guess the trial was going to begin on January 17th. To save Wesley Bell a lot of embarrassment, if I'm working for the county, I say, look, we're going to give this woman whatever she wants. Let's just negotiate with her. We don't want Wesley to have to answer any of these questions.
Well, January.
Now, maybe I'm just naive, Brad. Maybe I just fell off a turnip truck.
January 17th is tomorrow, John.
27th, Brad. I said the number wrong. Let's get over it.
I was going to say. No, I was going to say that's supposed to. Well,
okay, let's not nitpick. But you see what I'm saying?
First off, there's no sex allowed in offices other than in the county executive's head guy office. That's the only office that's allowed to have sex.
And why is he called the head guy, Brad? Is there something in? Well, why would we call him the head guy?
Who was the dude that was hired as his assistant?
I don't know his name, but you might want to tell the story.
A video surfaced of him having sex with a They never really identified who the woman was, but it
wasn't a coworker, Brad. It was one of his jump offs.
Oh, was that what it was? Okay, but in his office, he worked there, 2 weeks or something like that? I mean, he was like a new hire. Wasn't that the story?
No, he wasn't a new hire. I think he had been there a while, yeah.
Well, but he... how in the world do you do that and put that on a video and put that out on the internet? I don't get that.
Well, I don't think he... I mean, that's not what happened. That's not at all what happened. But let's get back to Wesley Bell, because that's the actually important piece of this, Brad, is this was going to be a big national story. And a lot of people were chomping at the bit to see this get national headlines. Because if you have a brand spanking new congressman that just displaced a member of the squad, and then details of whatever going on in the office, there's a lot of people that would love the salacious element of that. But it seems like somebody in the county was just like, look, give this woman whatever she wants so that we don't have to put Wesley through this.
John, it's real simple. They're Democrats. They can do that kind of stuff. Republicans can't get away with that. Democrats, who cares?
I don't know. I think there's some Democrats that stand up and say, look, we can't just be giving taxpayer money away because we don't want to embarrass Wesley Bell.
Okay, John, I'm going to put you on a spot. Besides Jane Dueker, who would those Democrats be?
Maria Chappelle-Nadal would be one. There's Democrats in South County that helped elect a new county councilman down there to replace a Republican named Ernie Trachis, who was seen as being a reliable pro-Page ally. I don't know anything about county government. These are just things that I've read and recall. You know, I generally don't even link the county stories. But yeah, there's Democrats that have stood up about this, Brett. And let's not forget, Cori Bush had a lot of friends, and those folks haven't forgiven Wesley Bell for upending their hero.
Well, I have too much dealing with St. Louis County government, and my dealings are I'm still mad about the fact you can't get past the first floor in the executive building. I'm still like, oh, come on.
That's definitely the biggest issue in county government.
That's for me and for taxpayers and for people trying to do business with St. Louis County. It's like, and you talk to them and go like, wasn't that put in effect for COVID? Yeah. Well, why are you still doing it? And you know the real reason why?
Why is that?
They don't want taxpayers coming into their offices.
Oh, yeah. You've mentioned that a few times.
They don't. It's just like I went to a McDonald's the other day, and the drive-through said, "Sorry, we don't want any customers." And I tried to go inside to eat, and it said, "Sorry, no one allowed in the service area. We don't want customers." I'm going like, "Hold on, aren't you in business?"
That's
to serve
because
food?
yesterday in A Block you besmirched them in favor of Burger King. You're a QSR guy and not an MCD guy.
There you go.